Good morning, everyone. Uh, I'm happy to be here actually. Each time we talk to others actually to explain our field of study, it's something great. Uh, Exchange knowledge, of course, and try to benefit from each other, inshallah. Of course, 45 minutes, we cannot explain the core issues and why international relations theory is important till the extent that we understand everything, but at least we may have an idea about what we are studying in this field of study, which is international relations theory. Without any other, we start with the major questions, of course. What is IR and what is IR theory? Means what is international relations? And at the same time, what is international relations theory? International relations, to put it in a simple way, we can say that it's the interaction among actors. Interaction among actors. And those actors can be state actors and can be non-state actors. Like, for example, international organizations, like individuals, for example, like governmental organizations, NGOs, and so on and so forth. So we consider it as a non-state actors, but still they are playing a major role nowadays in international relations. At the same time, we have the state as the main actor in international relations, according to some theories that we are going to study it today, inshallah. Now, the political scientists develop theories or framework to understand the causes of events, why events happen, to make a relationship between events, for example. What's the relationship between the war, for example, in the war in Ukraine and what's going on in Africa, in the Sahel, okay, in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Mauritania, for example, and those countries, what's going on there actually, and what its relation with what's going on in Ukraine? Is there any relation between these both regions and what's going on in the Middle East as at the same time, actually? So theories try to explain to us clearly and to simplify the things that's going on in international relations, which is the interaction among states, or interaction, sorry, among actors, that we cannot see it clearly because of what I'm going to show you shortly, inshallah. So this is IR. IR, as we said, encompasses much more than relations among nation states and international organizations and groups. It includes also a great variety of transnational relationships at various levels. Various levels means regional level, or sometimes state level, or sometimes at the global level, for example. I mean, if the crisis happened in the United States, like the crisis in 2008, for example, what will happen to the world, to the rest of the world? If something happened again to the United States of America, so what will happen also to us? And sometimes even the levels of analysis, we call it levels of analysis, sometimes even individual level can have a lot to do with international relations. For example, a question may be in your mind, why Elon Musk, for example, is supporting Donald Trump? It has a lot to do with IR. It has a lot to do with international relations, because we are going to include the war with China. We are going to include Russia also, but mainly with China and what's going on, specifically starting from 2023. You see, so it's a question of individuals. People just see that a businessman is supporting Donald Trump in the United States of America, putting 120 million USD. It's not for nothing, okay? And to begin with, it has nothing to do, of course, with Islamic perspective, actually. But what we learn in IR, actually, something that we say, there is nothing fi sabilillah in this world, okay? So when we see people paying a huge amount of money, when we see countries trying to pay a huge amount of money, there is nothing fi sabilillah. So there is always a reason behind it. What I want to say, there are levels of analysis, actually. So we it's not like what we see only. We see one country attack other country, or one country attack more than three countries, for example, but sometimes it's a question of individuals. Even individuals can have an impact in international relations. Okay, how about theories? Now, all the interactions that we see in the world, we need something to make it easier for us to understand, make it easier for us to understand, make it easier for us also to predict the future as well, and the directions, to simplify things also. So theories of IR allow us to understand and try to make sense of the world around us through various lenses. Okay, so those theories are lenses. Okay, I can see the world using realism. I can see the word using liberalism, using constructivism, for example, or power transition theory, like what's going on between the United States and Russia, for example. So each time I use a theory, I'm going to understand a lot behind it. And that's the importance of theory, actually. And also, as I said, is to simplify a complicated word, because this word is very, very complicated. Okay, so theories are like maps. When we have a map, of course, each map is going to give us directions, and we cannot put all directions together and provide this map to the user. Okay, so if someone asks me, for example, is new in IIUM, for example, ask me how to go, let's say, to KLCC, to discover KLCC for the first time, and so on and so forth, I cannot provide him with the transition map. I cannot provide him with a transition map. Means I'm not going to give him a map that include, for example, MRT, or the map that giving so many directions, how to go to Kuantan, how to go to Melaka, how to go here and there, because it's something wrong. It must be something very, very specific. And that's the role of theories in international relations, actually. So that's the word in 2008. Actually, in 2008, you can see almost how many issues that we have, and we call it a simple geopolitical matters. You see all these matters, and we have more, specifically after 2011 and what's going on in the Middle East, for example. Can you imagine that all of these issues, we need to understand it at the same time? If we don't have theories to guide us, therefore it will be problematic. You see, it will be problematic. Why? Because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of issues that's happening in this world at the same time. For that, we call it a complicated word, actually. How are we going to understand all of that? Of course, by using theories that may help us actually to understand directions. It's the same when we talk about this picture, for example. We have so many ways. Yes, we have the main one, but we have so many ways how to interpret events and so on and so forth. So we need to be clear from the beginning that that's how are we going to see the world, actually. Now, there are some reflections concerning this lecture and reflection concerning international relations. There are so many events and development in international politics. Every day we wake up and we are going to find something new happening here and there. Okay, so around the world. How do we understand all of that? Because in many cases, people, of course, get confused when they see so many issues in the Middle East, in Africa, in Europe, in Asia, for example, in the United States of America. How are we going to understand all of that? Do we know those issues? Or do we know, are we aware about the real matters? Are we aware about the real issue, actually? Can we, for example, explain all of it? Do they have any patterns? Okay, so to follow and to make it simple to follow as well. So we need theories to simplify reality and draw a pattern of events to develop our understanding of real international phenomena. We do have theories, and today, inshallah, we are going to discuss 3 or 4 theories, like realism, liberalism, and alternative theories of IR. We choose to talk about and we choose to discuss constructivism, which may help actually to understand some events and developments and so on and so forth. The Islamic approach, because we are with, of course, we are with the IIIT, but not only that, even in our class, actually, we try to have this Islamic approach, a sort of integration. For the sake of time, today we are going to include the Islamic approach when we discuss limitations of theories. So each theory has limitations, and therefore we are going to try to consider the Islamic approach in order to understand those limitations, inshallah. Now, what's the scope of international relations? Well, we study in international relations. We study civil war, like what happened in Syria, for example. What's going on in Syria, in Sudan, for example, in Yemen, and in so many countries. Why? Because many civil wars actually may have an impact, and this impact can be regional or even sometimes international. You see something happen in Myanmar, we find the impact here in Malaysia. Okay, so refugees, for example, it became another issue in neighboring countries. So it's just a civil war which is inside, but the impact can be regional and can be international as well. We discuss also the political economy matters, okay, which is the relationship between political issues and economic impact, for example, or vice versa. For example, the prices of oil, the prices of gold, also technologies, for example, the production. I mean, the problem between China and the United States concerning technologies, for example, what's the impact of that on politics, and vice versa also. And here, for example, we are going, is just to give you highlights. For example, we are going to understand why, for example, Elon Musk is supporting Donald Trump, because it has a lot to do with the economy, specifically technology, the coming of China, actually. Last year, in 2023, China produced 30 million vehicles. The United States of America, 10 million. Out of those 30 million cars in China, almost 14 million electrical cars. In the United States of America, is just 3 million and something, almost 4 million. And those under what? Those under Tesla. So what happened? Elon Musk, in reality, is not in control of electrical cars in the world. Means the United States is not in control. It's the coming of China. Okay, so how are we going to fix this issue? Actually, Elon Musk is supporting Donald Trump because Donald Trump, as a businessman, also promised Elon Musk that he is going to charge China 60% tariffs, which is a huge amount, actually. Why? Is to destroy competition, to let China revise prices, and therefore it will be very hard for China, starting from 2025, to compete in electrical cars. I told you, there is nothing feasibility, okay? And also, because of that, other regions are going to follow. And we have seen that already Europe followed the United States of America, and they said that they are going to charge China 35%. So they are trying to make it harder for China starting from the next year. Why? It's just because of one product, but it's also a question of technology. China is mastering technology and is coming fast. How are we going to fix this? Is by charging China and having more taxes. And fortunately for Elon Musk, someone came like him, a businessman like him, who is Donald Trump, and therefore he promised him that he is going to fix this issue by charging China more. They don't have other option. They cannot compete normally concerning products. They just can charge China more. The other things that we studied, and which is a scope of international relations, in general and international relations theory also, we try to understand the conflicts among countries in different regions. I mean, why, for example, Russia attacked Ukraine? There is no one answer for that. Okay, so in Western media, for example, you are going to hear that this is an aggression. Okay, so they attacked Ukraine, and therefore Vladimir Putin is evil, and all the things that you hear it every day, actually, in Western media, actually. But if you go and you approach Russia, also you are going to find another approach. So in international relations theory, for example, we use offensive and defensive realism to explain this. Why? Because someone is saying that I am defensive, the other one is saying you are offensive, and the same thing happened with other countries. So for Russia, for example, they said we are only protecting our minorities, Russian-spoken people, and at those five regions, actually, 5 states, wilaya. Okay, for that, so many people didn't understand why, for example, Russia didn't go till now. They didn't go to Kiev, the capital city of Ukraine, because it's something strategic. It has a lot to do with defensive and offensive realism. I'm not going to Kiev because my attention is not to invade Ukraine. My attention is just to protect those minorities. That's the position of Russia that you are going to hear. Okay, and as I told you, it has a lot to do with realism. Same thing, we discuss regionalism and what's going on in regional level, and we call it regional studies in our field, like, for example, European Union, like, for example, ASEAN. We try to understand Arab League, for example, among other organizations in all over the world. And also the relationship between countries or between some countries and European Union, for example. We try always to understand why, for example, which is a legitimate question, why European Union always try to discuss with the countries individually. You see, so for example, European Union doesn't discuss with ASEAN. They discuss with Malaysia alone, with Singapore, with Indonesia, with Thailand, for example. So we need to question this. Why they are doing this? The same thing happened with, for example, other Muslim countries, like, for example, in the Middle East. They are doing the same thing, trying to negotiate individually. They approach countries individually. Is that logical, actually? 25 countries trying to negotiate with one country at once. Okay, of course, there is a power of these regional organizations, actually. And finally, also, we may discuss the impact of international organizations, how they deal with different issues, like, for example, the United Nations nowadays, and how they are dealing with the war in Gaza, for example, the war in Syria, the war in Ukraine, for example, and also other international organizations like WTO, for example, World Trade Organization, because of what's going on in WTO, for example, World Trade Organization, led to the creation of BRICS that we see it nowadays. For example, the World Bank, also the impact of the World Bank, the impact of also of the Security Council in the United Nations, and so on and so forth. So all of these are a scope of international relations. But as I told you, we cannot understand it without using theories. Actually, we will come to this map again, inshallah. So approaches to the study of international relations. Well, the simple way to explain theories when we talk about international relations is to say that we do have traditional approaches, which is liberalism, realism, and Marxism, and also the new approaches like neorealism, neoliberalism. Also, we consider it as a part of what we call it traditional approaches in IR. The second one, we call it the critical approaches, which is that oppose, the traditional approaches. Now, the approaches that we are going to discuss it, as I said, traditional ones, realism, liberalism, and a little bit Marxism. We will discuss a little bit Marxism. There are two concepts that we are going to find that those theories are talking about too much. The first one is sovereignty. Okay, so we do have anarchy and we do have also sovereignty. So we start with anarchy. Anarchy is the lack of a central government that can enforce rules. There is no central government in this world. We don't have central government. We don't have a president of the world. Yes, we do have dominant power. We do have, for example, major powers, but we don't have a president. And this is a case that we can say this is anarchy. Okay, so there is no a real organization in this world. Because in international anarchy, all global actors are independent and they must rely on themselves. Means each one of us, each country must rely on itself. Okay, so there is no government is going to help us. We must help ourselves as a country in this world. And of course, we are going to see that theories are going to suggest a lot of things. So one theory, for example, suggested to cooperate and collaborate with the neighboring countries, to cooperate and collaborate with other states in the world. The others are going to say, no, try to maximize your power, like realism, for example. So it's a situation, and they are trying to give answer to this situation, which is the anarchy, the word anarchy. Okay, and of course, we are going to talk about national interest, and the national interest itself is a story in international relations. We can talk about the national interest for days when it comes to international relations, actually. Now, we do have also what we call it the sovereignty. Sovereignty supposed to be traditionally the most important norm, means that the government has the right in principle, okay, so to do whatever it wants in its own territory. It's supposed to be like that. But do we really have this 100% sovereignty, at least in our countries? Or more than that, can we say that after the United States of America, for example, attacked Afghanistan, invaded Afghanistan and invaded Iraq, can we say that those countries are practicing sovereignty on their land, actually? So it's a question of sovereignty also. What do we mean by that? Actually, most of us, we find ourselves sometimes, means all countries in the world, we find ourselves sometimes just following others' norms, specifically major powers or the dominant powers with power, which is the United States of America. So is there a real sovereignty in this world? So it means there are two things. So the first problem is the anarchy. And then we need to deal also with the second problem, which is a sovereignty also. Okay, so we are going to find that theories most of the time are focusing on these two concepts. There are other concepts, but these two concepts really are the focus of theories in international relations. So we start with realism. Realism, of course, has a lot of scholars, starting from Machiavelli and Hobbes, among others. Those are philosophers and thinkers that we consider as a realist. Why? Because their ideas has a lot to do with that. Hobbes, for example, in his book Leviathan, which is the platform, is the foundation of realism that we see it nowadays. So he came out with this idea, and he said that men are equal, means they do have ability, not in something good. They do have ability, and they are equal. And has a right to everything, means they cannot, they can, for example, harm each other. For example, they do have the ability to do so. So I can harm you, at the same time you can harm me. Imagine in this situation, means the human nature is not good. So that's the foundation of realism theory. the foundation of realism theory is that human nature is evil, 100%. I can harm you, you can harm me. This is the situation. So Hobbes, he said, not only that, stop there. There is another problem. Another problem is like when we used to live in a pre-social time, actually, when there is what? They interact in anarchy. We are interacting in anarchy. There is no other power above us can stop us, right? And this is a problem in international relations in the world, actually. So as a state, for example, I can harm you. As you are a state, you can also harm me. And what's the problem above all of that? We are interacting in anarchy. So there is no government. We don't have a president. Means if I can do so, I will just choose the time and choose the real moment to attack you, for example, to promote my national interest, to promote my interest. Remember, because a human being is evil, means a human being is selfish, human being is self-interest, human being is self-help, human being is egoist. Therefore, I need to serve myself as it is. And there is no such good way to serve myself by, for example, attacking others and try to get whatever I need. Now, the third thing, they are motivated by competition, differences, and a glory, specifically differences in terms of national interest. My interest is not like yours. And therefore, we are always in the state of what? We are always in the state of war, actually, because each time we don't have the same interest, we don't have the same objectives as a state, and therefore there is a strong possibility to fight against each other. Imagine above all of this, and Thomas Hobbes is going to give us another indicator, another factor to the image, which is the scarcity. He said also that there is a scarcity of resources. How are you going to get your power when there is a scarcity? Means you need to look for your scarcity. You need to look for resources, more resources, material resources, actually. And this is, as you can see, is a pure evil image of the world, actually. And it may explain, for example, when we see this, it may explain in a certain way why, for example, the United States is getting oil from the Middle East when the United States itself has the third biggest reserve in the world, actually. So they do have oil. Why they are trying to get it elsewhere? So the answer, one of the answers, is because of this. So they are trying to share the oil of the Middle East, and after they will done with that in the future, actually, they will have their own oil, actually. You see, so they are sharing with others, but they are not going to share with others in the future. Why? Because they believe on scarcity. Now, this scarcity means they need to exploit the world as much as they can, taking whatever they can, actually, for now, even if they have it in the United States, but they try it to get it from abroad, actually. Okay, so abroad first, and then they are going to use their capacities and their resources in the future. I made it in tables to make it a little bit easy for you. So I made theories in tables just to show the key assumptions, the key terms, concepts, limitations, and so on and so forth. So the key assumptions, the first one, power is primarily thought of as material resources necessary to harm or physically face other states. Okay, so realists, they said this word, international politics, they call it international politics, is a struggle of power. That's the history of the world, is a struggle of power, actually. So in the past, we have empires. The war among empires is who is to be in a position of power. Okay, so getting power means getting resources, and getting more resources means to be powerful more and more, and therefore you will be dominant, you will be, as a hegemon theory, all time actually, and you need to keep this position. You cannot give up that position. Okay, and then the individuals believe that others are always trying to attack and destroy them. Okay, it's like if I don't attack you, if I don't go to Afghanistan, if I don't go to Iraq, if I don't destroy Syria, I don't destroy Sudan, I don't destroy other countries actually, and specifically the other powers like China and Russia, if I don't destroy them, they are going to destroy me in the future. Okay, why? Remember, it's because of the human nature. Human nature is evil 100%. That's how they understand human nature. Okay, and then self-interest. Because of the anarchy and because of the human nature of all of us, therefore there is self-interest. I need to look for myself. I need to see my interest alone. Okay, so therefore self-interest guides the individual's behavior. That's what guides us, is our self-interest. I just mentioned to you the case of Elon Musk, for example. It's a self-interest. Okay, so therefore we need to look for ourselves. And finally is the national interest, as defined in terms of power, is the only reality of international relations. What does it mean, the only reality? I don't care about other countries. It's as simple as that. Okay, so other countries are not under my focus. I will help them if I see my benefit, if this is my interest. And national interest is above everything in this world, even above ethics, even above moralities, and so on and so forth. I always give this example to my students, telling them, you heard specifically in YouTube, for example, some videos when soldiers, American soldiers, go home to the United States, and you can see beautiful music and thanks for your service, telling them thanks for your service, crying and so on and so forth. I told my students, those are the same soldiers who are killing people overseas. You see? So getting emotional when we see this kind of videos, we must always remember that those are the same people who are killing overseas. But how are we going to explain this through realism theory? Realism theory gave us the answer. Realists, they said that national interest itself is a morality. Means, if I am serving the United States of America, that's my morality. That's my ethics. It's not killing people. You see? So they try to give explanation to everything. Okay, so to justify what they are doing in the world, actually. So the national interest itself is a morality for realism. So don't think too much as a soldier. Don't think too much when you kill people overseas and so on and so forth, because you are serving your country. You are serving the national interest, which is above everything in this world. You see, so there is explanation for that. The key concept is a human nature, selfish, egoist, self-interest, security matters. When you hear people talking too much about security matters, attacking others and so on and so forth, like Israel, the state of Israel and so on and so forth, is a question of realism. Okay, so to maximize benefit and so on and so forth. And then we have sovereignty, national interest, and the power politics. Limitation: little or no consideration of morality and ethics. There is no morality there. There is no ethics there. We need to understand that when you talk to those people are not going, are not feeling nothing actually concerning what they are doing in other countries. Why? Because there is no consideration for morality and ethics, and we don't need to say actually this contradict Islam actually, and contradict even the human sense actually. A human sense, like when we talk about a human nature, also we need to mention fitra here. A human nature is not 100% evil. In Islam, we do have something that we call it fitra, fitrat Allah allati fatara an-nas alayha. Or the Prophet ﷺ said, kullu mawludin yuladu ala fitra. And some scholars, they said the fitra means and you are able, at least if not distinguishing between what is bad, what is good, at least you feel more about good things. Okay, so all of us, we try to promote peace. All of us, we try to be good to each other, for example. At least we know that. Okay, so we know that, and this is fitra, and it has nothing to do with evil, actually. So to say that a human nature is 100% evil means we cannot fix it. And this is something wrong, actually, if we continue with that. So also there is other thing concerning cooperation. Cooperation, for example, in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, خَلَقْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. Sometimes is to know each other, and also to cooperate and collaborate with others. So cooperation, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. Sometimes the birr and taqwa is to serve our nations all together. It doesn't mean that we need to destroy each other. It doesn't mean that conflict and war is necessary. And finally, the limitation, one of the limitations is the attention to the role of non-state actor. There is no attention to the role of non-state actors. It's not always the state. In Sharia, for example, in Islam, the Prophet ﷺ said, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. We know that we do have a mission in this world. We know that it's not only our government who is responsible. We do have things to do as all together. So this is the image that we can get it from realism. Anarchy with the human nature leads to what? Lead to continuous conflicts. There is no such thing that we call it peace. Okay, so when we see peace, and that's the conclusion about realism, they said when there is peace, in reality we are preparing for war. So during peace is a preparation for another war. Okay, so there is no stop of that. That's unfortunately the image that we have. Before of time, I just escaped this because this is about a new realism, is to show liberalism actually. For liberalism holds that human nature is basically good, and that people can improve their moral and material conditions, making societal progress possible. Bad or evil behavior is the product of what? Inadequate social institutions and misunderstanding among leaders. So therefore, human nature is okay. What's the problem? If we see problem with the human nature, means we do have a domestic problems. It has nothing to do with international relations. So therefore, we need to fix the state, and we need to fix the nation domestically first, and then we go to international relation part actually. You see, so anything happen in international relations, it's because of what we have in a domestic level. Okay, why, for example, countries are fighting, liberals are going to tell you is because the absence of democracy, the absence of a human right, the absence of a free market or free trade, and so forth. So there are limitations also. The first one, we ask question, can we achieve peace and democracy by war? Because there is what we call a democratic peace theory that we are going to mention it shortly, inshallah. So can we achieve what the liberals are talking about by war? Because George W. Bush told us that we are going to Iraq to spread democracy. Is that democracy? By killing people, by killing 1 million people and destroy the country. Is that democracy that you are going to bring? Or because of a human rights? Is that a human right? Is that the way how to promote a human rights? Or, for example, having sections because, let's say, for example, we don't accept ideas, or the ideas like, for example, LGBT or something like that. Therefore, you're going to have sanctions and so on. Is this the way how to promote peace? So you are talking about peace, but you are promoting war at the same time. You see, so there is no one mean. There is no clear, we can say there is no clear meaning of democracy. So what is democracy that you want to, for example, you want to spread actually in the world? Which kind of democracy that you want? Let's discuss the concepts first. What is democracy that you want to that you want us to implement it in our countries? Which kind of a human rights that you want us to achieve? Or when we talk about the free trade, is that right? The free trade, of course, it's acceptable in Islam actually to have a free trade actually, but at the same time, sometimes a free trade might harm our countries. I open my country, I can receive your cars coming from the United States, coming from European Union, but you make it difficult for me to promote proton in your countries. Is that a free trade actually? So you are practicing protectionism actually. So you are protecting yourself. There is no competition in your countries and you are trying to impose something else on us. Is that what you are talking about? Means there is a gap between what you are theorizing and the real world actually. So because of time, so just I said they started from domestic problems. They said the reason of conflicts, why we do have conflicts, if you ask them why we have all these conflicts in the Middle East, they are going to tell you it's because the concentration of power in one hand or two hands, means the president or the prime minister, for example, the imperfect or partial representation of social interest, for example, concerning parliament, concerning representative of people, and also extracting private gains as well. That's what lead to conflict actually from with one country to another, because according to them, democracies cannot fight against each other. Therefore, what's the problem? How are we going to achieve peace? They come out with the idea of democratic peace theory. Liberals, they come out with the idea of democratic peace theory. They said what we see is a negative peace, means just the absence of war. How are we going to eradicate this? By having what we call it positive peace, means to eradicate the causes of violence, for example, the causes of war. And we have seen how they implement this in different countries. Unfortunately, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Sudan, among other countries as well. What's the means to do so? According to liberalism, actually, they said we need to spread democracy, as we explained before, and also there is another part, which is the globalization of the world economy. For that, we have seen so many issues. Why something happened in the United States of America, we feel it here in Malaysia. It's because of what? It's because of globalization. Everything starting from one source actually, and it may has an impact on other countries and other regions as well. Marxism approaches, we have dependency theory, world system theory, and neo-Marxist theory. I will just discuss about the first one because of time. So believes that international organizations, NGOs also, especially banks and MNCs actually, are established to maintain dependency relationship and promote exploiter-exploited relationship. So they are just there to exploit other people, to exploit other countries, and that's how we understand the word. Actually, we understand it as a word of dependency. Okay, so the same thing, the word system theory, when we have core, periphery, and some semi-periphery as well. Critical theories, I know I have 1 or 2 minutes just to let you know, critical theories is against all those traditional theories, specifically after the collapse of the Soviet Union. They said that almost all theories, traditional theories, they didn't see the collapse of the Soviet Union coming actually. Why? They said because they were focusing too much on individuals. They were focusing too much on a state, on a government. Okay, on a state and a government, how to fix state, how to fix a government, and so on and so forth. So the critical theories starting from 90s, they said, why you don't focus on society? Why you don't deal with the society? Try to understand what's going on in our societies actually. And sometimes because of societies, we may benefit a lot. I mean, just look at the societies, for example, the two societies, Malaysian and Singaporean societies, whether we like it or not, they achieve themselves. Consent means they promote peace among those two countries. It's because this interaction between those societies, actually, they can come to Malaysia, specifically during weekends. Okay, so they can come to Malaysia, actually, and the Malaysians also can go to Singapore because they do have a lot of interest among each others. And that's what promotes societies, actually. So therefore, we need also to study society and the role of societies in international relations and the promoting peace and so on and so forth. And here we are going to find constructivism theory, specifically constructivism theory, and constructivism focusing too much on what we call it society, specifically the norms, the role of norms, the role of culture, for example, and they said that the national interest is not fixed, like what, for example, realism tried to explain to us. They said the national interest is fixed, is something to do with power and maximizing power. So the constructivists, they said, no, the national interest is depend on societies. Okay, so societies, therefore we need to look for societies. Any national interest must come from the society itself, actually. And therefore, in this way, if we can construct societies, therefore, we can construct national interest and international relations after that. For that, we are going to see that they are talking too much about the identity, how to promote the word identity, for example, the culture, the norms, how to change it, and so on and so forth, how to construct a new norms, and so on and so forth, in order to minimize the issues that we see in international relations. So the limitation of constructivism, the first thing is, what do we want actually to construct? Because what is good for you, for example, cannot be good for me as a Muslim, for example. This type of society that you want to achieve, it cannot feed, for example, our Islamic teaching, for example, and therefore the constructivism to construct societies itself is a problematic in this way. We cannot construct societies and having what we call it the word identity, the word citizen, for example, because it's something very difficult to achieve when we have many societies and many opposite approaches, actually. So despite the theoretical appeal, I just need 1 minute, sister. So it's a promise is still unrealized. It's very difficult actually to discuss the word from that point of view. I just told you, individuals like Vladimir Putin, individuals like Donald Trump still decide for us, unfortunately, in this world. So therefore, to say that it's a role of societies and so on and so forth, still something unrealistic in international relations. So much of what they claim theoretically, actually, though plausible, remains untestable, actually. Why? Because we didn't test this yet. Try to form a society, and then we are going to see the type of that construct society, and then we are going to see if that society can fit as, for example, as a Muslims, yes or no. And those are, I just provide some references for you, some books, some of them are available online, inshallah, to get it, to have more readings about international relations theories and international relations in general. Thank you.